Welcome back, everybody, to the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. My name is Milan. I don't know why I was waiting for you to answer.
I was like, you know your name?
I forgot for a second. And you are?
Pia.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am very
I'm
certain.
uncertain. and this past weekend we had the...
F1 Vegas Grand Prix. We were in Viva Las Vegas, baby.
So we were next door in LA.
Yeah, we didn't make it.
But we rolled the dice and we watched the race.
Yes.
And it was a race.
It was an okay race. Yeah, it wasn't as exciting as last year's Vegas
correct.
race. I mean, it's still, of course, a spectacle. It's in Vegas. It's also not my favorite track layout overall. I would think a lot of people probably agree with that. It was interesting layout, but there were still some great moments in the race.
Yes, but let's talk about the big thing. Of course, we have to give Max Verstappen his flowers. 4 times a back-to-back
World champion.
And Max also, ever since then, has been on a rampage. And he's like, burning bridges is what I do. No, but honestly, like, it's so funny. And I love that. This is one of my favorite things about Max, that he doesn't hold back.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't care.
But
yeah.
He doesn't care enough.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't care enough about
the
any
spectacle,
of the
or anything around
BS.
it. Yes.
He said it before that he wished he wasn't as well known.
Yes.
You know, he just wants to say it. And like, there was this post-race interview with him and Zach Brown where he called out Zach Brown, be like, you told me, like, this time it was different because you said I could only win in the fastest car, right? And he called him out right on live TV. And I think later on, because there's this compilation of him
getting progressively drunker throughout the night.
Yeah, exactly, because he first started out with like a beer.
Then he went to gin and tonic.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then I think in a Dutch interview, he actually talked about how he called Zach Brown out on Sky TV.
Oh, yes.
He talked about it because he was already sloshed, and I was like,
Yes.
dude, honestly,
I mean, live your
enjoy
best
it.
life. You're 4-time world champion.
Exactly.
I mean, not
There's-
a lot of people are 4-time world champion. I mean, I think there's 6 in total now with him. It's Michael Schumacher. It's him. It's Lewis Hamilton, of course. There's Fangio. And I feel like there's
one more, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more. I just can't think of the name right now. But yeah, I'm like, dude, have your fun. I think it will be really interesting because we know that the Red Bull is not as good as it used to be,
Yes.
right? And I think it will be interesting because first Vettel, also a V name.
Oh,
interestingly,
4. He's
won
also 4.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Vettel, yeah. But
Yeah.
he also won 4 back-to-back
Yes.
with Red Bull, and then it dropped off, and then he didn't, unfortunately, win anything again.
Yeah.
So I'm not hoping this will happen to Max, but it will be interesting to see because I'm hoping next season we'll have 3 different drivers or 3 different teams also fighting
Yes.
for the championship. So I'm very, very excited.
Yes.
However, let's talk about the race.
Yeah, let's talk about the race. I mean, first, I feel like the biggest upset, and we've talked about it before, is going into the race, Pierre Gasly qualifying, I think it was 3rd, right? He qualified in 3rd. I mean, going into it, we knew that it was going to be tricky for him to land on the podium. Like, of course, we had a double Alpine podium in Sao Paulo, but
this was rain.
It was a different race. It was out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And so going into this race, him just being in Q3, ending up in 3rd for the starting grid was amazing. Good on him. I mean, he drove it. Yeah, he put in those numbers.
Yeah.
So it was great. But I mean, for a race, I don't think the Alpine necessarily has the pace to compete with some of the other top teams.
Especially not on this track where the Mercedes really came alive.
Well, because it's the track, the layout, but it's also the track temperatures, which really helped Mercedes. So it was just a little bit of a bummer that Pierre Gasly ended up DNFing.
I don't know if you saw this, but the reason why he DNF'd is absolutely insane.
Oh, I don't know why.
So apparently he caught a slipstream from someone, and he was in 8th gear, and the slipstream was, I guess, so insane that he hit over 12.8 RPMs. So 12,800 and some change. And then essentially that literally cost his engine to blow up.
Oh no. Are you serious?
Yes.
It was too fast.
He
The
was too
car
fast
couldn't
and too
handle
serious.
it.
I mean, to be fair, he didn't already have the best of starts. I think Charles actually had the best start out of all.
Oh
everyone.
yeah, he did drop a couple positions at the start. Yeah.
I think this is all something that also kind of comes with practice.
Yeah.
And being in position more and more often, because I don't think Gasly has had a lot of opportunities to start from the front.
Yes.
And I think like the more you do it, the better you get at it. But Charles had a really, really great start where he essentially jumped from, I think, P4 to P2. So he had a really, really excellent start. There was a whole thing about the Ferrari drama, and we'll talk about
that in a second. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's very, very unfortunate for Gasly that he DNF'd, and I think this is also really, really vital right now. We're in a situation where Haas Ferrari is 50 points in the Constructors' Championship, and Alpine Renault has 49
post Vegas,
and then the Visa Cash App has 46. And I think honestly, the one team that's consistently in the points is Haas.
Yeah, which is I mean, that's a shocker.
Yeah,
who would have
3 years
who would have said that? Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just a bummer because I mean, one, it's a bummer, of course, obviously for Pierre Gasly, but then it is, like you said, it's a huge bummer for Alpine because they can use these valuable points because in Sao Paulo they made up so many points, and it catapulted them a little bit in the Constructor Championship, so that now it did hurt them a little bit. So so we'll have, I mean, we have 2 more races to go, so we'll see how that part of the Constructor Championship will come to an end.
Play out because
yeah,
they're
exactly.
so tight. I will say, I think the ongoing biggest loser now back-to-back Grand Prix is still Williams.
Yeah.
Due to Albon DNFing, Colapinto crashing in qualifying
Q2.
Q2, they were able to get the car together, but he started from the pits. Then Albon's car just falling apart. Right?
Yeah.
And then there was no way that Colapinto really was going to make it into the points. I think. This
I mean, he did a great job. He ended up coming in 14th.
Yes, but
with 2 DNFs, of course, but still, he did an excellent job. But yeah, I mean,
it was always a stretch. I think if anyone from the not top teams would have made it ahead of Sergio, who went from 17th, I think, till 10th, because he also had a Q1 exit again.
Surprise!
I mean, that's a whole other situation. It would have been Alonso, because he had this hyper aggressive strategy.
I know.
He's the only person who started on the softs.
5 laps in, he went into the pits for the first stop and to change onto the hard tires. Yeah. And you were saying his post-race interview kind of got you excited.
Yeah, I was really excited because he, I think like with 3 laps or 4 laps to go, Checo was able to pass him. And then he, in his post-race interview, he was like, yeah, it's very unfortunate, but I'm ready to jump right back into the car in Qatar right now and get my revenge.
Yeah, because he slipped out of the points just there at the end, because we were so excited that he would be able to make it into the points, because Aston Martin has been I feel like they've been completely off of my radar for the last couple of races.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because last year they had some podiums on there, and this year they completely slipped off. I think one of Stroll's pit stops was completely catapulted because no one was ready yet.
Because they were suddenly running out with the tires while he was already standing there.
And then the same thing also happened, or something similar happened to Ocon, who went through the pits and then his pit crew wasn't there.
Yeah, so he had to go out again. So he lost immediately several seconds right there.
Yeah, I mean, just because essentially he got a drive-through penalty.
What a mistake!
They put on themselves. Yeah. And very, very interesting. There was a bunch of teams who had miscommunication. Ferrari also had this with, I think it was Carlos's first pit, because him and Hamilton were kind of battling to get into the pits. And then Hamilton went in, and then right before the pits, Ferrari was like, we're not ready. And then he had to wait another lap or 2, which did ended up hurting him quite a bit. So because then you end up in traffic and stuff like that when you come back out. Yeah, so it's very interesting how many issues there were in the like the pit situation in the Vegas.
It was clearly all of the marijuana in the air in Vegas.
Yeah, the marijuana.
Everybody was high.
Everyone was high. Because apparently it smelled like weed. That was like the overall.
Yeah, because Sergio Perez had commented on it during the pre-race interview. Franco Colapinto had commented on it.
Said we're all high right now. So
it was so funny. So maybe there was
a good cover story in case there's a drug test.
But okay, so let's go on to, I feel like, the biggest story outside, of course, congratulations to Max. We already talked about it. He won. Let's talk about very briefly about the podium. George Russell, surprisingly, he was able to stay in the front pretty much the entire race.
He controlled the race really, really well.
We didn't see him pretty much the whole race because he did his thing. He had quite a distance to second place, which ended up being Lewis Hamilton.
It was not quite a distance.
Oh, I mean,
Lewis definitely did a charge.
No. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, he still was 7 seconds ahead by the end.
Yeah.
But Lewis did a huge charge towards the end. I was very surprised that he ended up coming in second. He did have great practices.
I predicted it.
Yeah, that's true. He did have great practice sessions. The Q3 session didn't go quite as well as he wanted to. Otherwise, he might have even won the race.
He would have won 100% because he outpaced George by quite a bit. And I understand that George was probably not pushing overtly.
Yes, agreed.
But he still outpaced him significantly. Yes. He did, 12 fastest laps?
Mm-hmm.
I think if Lewis would have not messed up his Q3, which was his own fault, he would have won the race.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then, so now the big... Not upset. Obviously, we love Carlos. Carlos came in third, but that's where some of the controversy happened. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys heard the post-race radio of Charles Leclerc being very upset about not team orders, but team orders not being followed and him always being the nice guy and doing things for the team, but him, in a way, I guess, not getting the same respect back. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and that he feels like him being nice or him just being respectful, he always gets screwed over.
Yes.
I'm assuming there's also maybe more or accumulation of things that I cannot remember that happened this year.
Oh, yeah.
That contributes to that.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if I read about it, I'm like, oh, I remember this has happened. But also there have been now 21 races, so forgive us.
Yeah.
And yeah, he really went off on the radio. And then his then there's one thing he felt bad about because he when he was like, oh, I'm getting screwed over and stuff like that. I think he meant it and he wanted to be on the radio. But then
okay.
Yeah, because I listened to the whole thing.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I think if you read about it, it comes off as he's apologizing to it, but then his engineer tells him something to hey, pick up the pace. I think at the end to get into the pits, and he was like, excuse my cursing, was like, what the fuck, pick up the pace, right? And then he was like, oh, I'm sorry. Because he was just going off.
Yeah.
But he didn't realize that he had the radio off, and I don't think he meant to openly
his engineer.
And it's like, of course, oh, he shouldn't have done it in the first place. But there's adrenaline rushing, you're mad, and you just say things that you don't necessarily mean. And I genuinely believe that he didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
But we all say things when we're mad.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe he meant the first part.
Yeah. But I mean,
but not the
him about the race engineers. Like, what the, I do believe that was just meant for himself. And sometimes you just need to let go of those frustrations.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Charles is a malicious person like that whatsoever.
No, I wouldn't think so.
But on the other hand, so essentially there was this thing, Charles made this huge leap to second place. And originally Carlos started in P3 or P2. Yeah,
P2.
He started
Yes, because Gasly was third, yes.
And then Charles made the lunge to the front, and very, very fairly he made his passes. And then he's been told on the radio that Carlos will not pass him and he won't push him.
Yes.
And then Carlos just passes him, and then he says things like, maybe you should have told him in Spanish. And then I guess it's kind of just brewing in him.
Yeah.
Because at that point, Carlos does make it onto the podium. He finishes P3.
Yes.
But he's not able to catch that again. I don't think this was also the track for the Ferraris. They didn't really have the pace as if they had on other tracks, in which that kind of just how it goes. We saw the McLarens were nowhere.
Yeah.
They finished in P6 and P7.
Yeah.
So Max finished in P5, which he just had to finish ahead of Lando in order to clinch the championship. But I think also this is kind of Carlos doesn't have anything to lose, or Carlos doesn't have to play nice anymore because
he's not going to be part of Ferrari next season.
I'm not saying I agree or disagree with this. You know, I'm just saying it's kind of if Lewis would get team orders, because Lewis 100% knows that he will never return to Mercedes. With Carlos, we don't know.
Yes.
Because his career will go long enough where he might return.
Maybe.
I'm not saying that with that move he burned bridges, but I'm saying he's leaving, so he's just gonna try to get as many podiums as he can, because next year he will be in a Williams.
Yeah.
And him getting podiums in the Williams will be very, very difficult, because the Williams,
at least in 2025,
is not
yeah,
really the hyper competitive car that they probably would like it to be. It also doesn't help that they spend all this money on the repairs.
I agree. I mean, I completely see Carlos's side, and of course there's
I see Charles' side too.
Yeah, there's like a selfishness to race car drivers, which is understandable because they race for themselves first, and then of course also for the teams. But then on the other hand, Charles is still fighting for the second place in the overall driver championship, and Carlos is not in contention for that. Like, Charles is currently with 319 points post Vegas race, and Lando Norris is 340 race, and those couple of extra points that he could have earned if Carlos would have not passed him, would have helped him potentially. Maybe, depending on how the other two races will be going with the overall driver championship. So he could have come out second. But now there's an even larger gap. So the chances are a lot lower.
They are a lot lower also because there's no guarantee that the McLarens won't be, those tracks won't be favorable for them, because they have, the fastest car. There's always usually a track that the car doesn't, do well on.
Yes.
We had that last year with the Red Bull in Singapore. It was just not the track for it. But I understand that Charles is still, technically, Carlos is within 9 points of Oscar Piastri, so they're kind of battling for fourth. But I would understand where, I guess both of them are thinking like, my battle is more important to me.
Of course.
In the end, I think the only thing that is now still getting battled out is the Drivers' Constructors Championship. So we have McLaren with 608 points. We have Ferrari with 584 points.
Yes.
So this is like a 24 points gap right now. So there's still something that Ferrari can do. The good thing is, I don't know if you know this, that Ferrari always gets a bonus.
Oh, yes. Because they're a legend. What's it called? A legacy team.
They're the only team that have competed in all F1 seasons. So that's why I think they get 5% extra, or I think it's 5% extra at the end of the Constructors' Championship. So whatever money they would get for their position, they get 5% on top of that.
Yeah.
Which I think is fair.
But yeah, I think,
Not that that's probably the team that doesn't need it,
Yeah, that's true.
So like all the other teams probably.
Yeah. But I feel like that was definitely the biggest post-race conversation now. The whole Charles, not versus Carlos, but a little bit that animosity. I was thinking afterwards, I was like, oh, I wonder if Charles is going to now enter his villain era. If he's just like, F this, I'm going to just do my thing. But I'm also curious to see how his relationship will be with Lewis next year, and of course with the team as well, if that's going to impact it a little bit. You had mentioned that of course Lewis is past his not villain era, but he had this big era with Nico Rosberg.
He was also a lot younger when they were
and
I'm not saying he's past it, because I obviously cannot speak for him,
no,
but I just could imagine that he would handle things differently.
I mean, he wouldn't crash purposely.
Well, not that they crashed purposely, but neither of them conceded, right?
Yes.
But I don't think Lewis is in the place where he's like, I'm gonna like I don't know. I don't think he would be like that much of a hammer. Where I do believe though is that Lewis is less of a pushover than Charles. And I'm not saying that Charles is a pushover, but Charles like you have the guy joining who's like statistically the greatest driver of all times.
Yes.
Joining the team, like now it's to pull up your pants, pull yourself up on the bootstraps or something like that.
Charles has been getting better about like standing up for himself and saying like, oh, this is the strategy I want. This is what we're doing. So I'm hoping it will just continue on that route, that he'll get more, I don't know if it's more confidence in himself or believing in himself and standing up for himself, because that's what he needs. He needs to back himself so he has the chance to be a world champion one day, hopefully. I would love to see him be a champ, but I guess we shall see.
I know that there was a lot of contention between Vettel and Charles when Charles joined Ferrari, and there was like times where there was team orders, and Vettel was like, well, he just needs to be faster than me if you want him to pass me, and stuff like that. I honestly think that in the beginning they will both play nice until it comes down to the Drivers' Championship, because then it's like I could imagine like Lewis goes into shark mode because I'm like, I've been there. I know what it takes to win a championship.
Well, yeah, not only that, but then he has the potential to win another legendary or add like a thing to his.
I always say that I hope he's the one that breaks the Ferrari curse.
Yes.
You know, I've said this multiple times. I'm sure I've said it here on the channel before. Like, I want... Not that I don't want Charles to be a champion, but if Lewis can finally get his 8th, because then he can also retire in peace. Then he's proved everyone in the FIA.
Not that he needs to prove anything to anybody,
the FIA
but
can
yeah,
truly fuck off.
Yeah,
and like we talked about this, that if he would win, when he wins the drivers' championship, that with Ferrari, that Italy would make him
honorary citizen. He's gonna be
just
Italian.
Like Brazil. They'd be like, listen, you are us now.
Yes,
you know?
100%. I can't wait for next season.
Yeah.
But before we get, or I mean, that's that. But we should talk about the big news that was announced today.
Correct.
Yes.
The only other thing is that, like, I know that there was a lot to talk about, and we did talk a lot about a lot of things that happened, but the race itself was not that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was
like,
it
even
was
though
an okay
Lewis
race.
passed a lot of people and stuff like that, the race was all right.
Yeah.
I don't think it was one of the better races.
No.
It was a medium race.
Yeah.
You know? I think if you didn't watch it, I don't think you necessarily missed that much.
Yeah.
Besides the fact, obviously, that Max became champion.
Yeah.
And then we had
which kind of a little bit overshadowed George Russell winning
but
the race.
I think that's fair, though.
Which, no, of course, it's completely understandable. Yeah. But then also the whole podium situation in Vegas is so strange.
Because everything takes way too long.
Yes.
Because they have to take the car there, and then, I don't know, everything takes way too long.
Yeah.
But
anyways,
the big F1 news, if you guys haven't heard this, and this is where you guys hear about this first, which is wild, is that in 2026, we officially have now an 11th team with GM Cadillac joining. It's essentially the same, I think, people and also funding that was behind the Andretti push. It's just now that I think it has been kind of restructured that it will be GM Cadillac team. It won't be a Andretti team. I think Mario Andretti, as well as the other Andretti, I just forgot his name right now, they are both will be involved with the team. I think one of them will be an ambassador. I'm not sure if the other one will be a team chef or something like that. There is association to Andretti, but the name as of right now is not that.
Yes.
I think it's really, really awesome.
Yeah.
By the time they will be joining the grid, which will be in 2026, it will be actually exactly 10 years since we've had 11 teams on the track.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
I believe 2016 was the last time.
Okay, awesome.
So it's not the first time. And I think it's really cool. I do believe, though, and I know that they voted against this, but I do believe then they should revisit this whole
100%.
thing about extending the points, maybe being able to score points up until the 12th position.
Yes, agreed. Especially with extra cars on the grid, with more teams, I definitely think that the point system should be a little bit expanded because even now, I mean, only the top teams really score points.
Especially during sprint races.
Yeah.
That's even
I mean, the whole sprint race
9.
thing needs to change anyways. But I'm excited that we'll have another team on the grid. I'm excited also just to learn more about them, to see how it influences the grid. And I love that they're joining when there's the big regulation change because they will give them not a more even starting point, but a little bit more of they're a little bit maybe an easier start than if they would join now mid-season.
Sorry, and I'm not saying I'm not expecting them to be hyper competitive off the get-go, but I do believe that they could do quite well because I know that the Cadillac in the WEC has had some really, really strong performances.
Yeah.
So
and I think they have been successful in Indy with Andretti, and then also in Formula E, I believe they have a team as well.
So there's a lot of they have good people. They can clearly
have great
cars.
Experience in racing already. So it's just a matter of fine-tuning it for F1 in particular. But I agree with you. I'm not expecting them to be a top team at the beginning. I mean, that would be a huge shocker. But I would love for them to be competitive.
Good solid midfield team would already be good if they could start out like that.
Even if they just score a couple of points, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Would be huge for a new team, especially if the point system will be the same as it is right now, I think,
Uh-huh.
I think that would be a huge accomplishment.
I think also what I'm hoping for next year, I mean, technically this could still happen this year, but I think it's very unlikely. I don't want a team to not score any points.
Agreed.
We've had this now several times. We had this with Haas before. This year we have it with the Kick Sauber.
Mm-hmm.
And I think last year, I'm uncertain if the Alfa Romeo scored any points. If at all, it was maybe like 1 or 2.
Yes.
It's just not something I want to see because it's also like, I feel like it's so disheartening for the drivers. We have Valtteri Bottas who won't be on the grid next year because I've read this article where people have short-term memories in F1. Like, you have an excellent driver like Valtteri, shown that he can, successfully race in the front. He has won 10 Grand Prix, consistently. He was on the podium when he was in a car that was capable, but it's like he's been now stuck in a car that's garbage for the last 2 years. And fortunately he will be a reserve driver for Mercedes, which will be awesome. But it's like, it's so unfortunate that a driver like that doesn't have a seat because you're stuck in this garbage car.
I agree. And the one last thing I want to say about the GM /
and then
Cadillac
I will also say one last thing
is that I'm very curious who the drivers are going to be.
Market next year will be
yes, because I would assume that they would put one experienced driver in the car, if not 2 drivers with some experience, because they are a new team. So that's why I'm wondering if maybe somebody will come back and be in it, or
we could have Magnussen come back for a third time. And I think maybe the popular combo would be bringing someone back and then having a rookie, because both of those drivers wouldn't be quote unquote too expensive.
Yes, agreed.
Especially because maybe if you're still trying to figure out your car, and once you know where you're at, then maybe you're like, okay, let's invest in a driver that can really push it.
Agreed. But then I also wonder, like, would they want an American driver? But then the only one that we had in recent years was Logan Sargent, which I don't think he would come back for it.
Who's the guy from Indy who won? Who's that guy?
No. Oh, Josef Newgarden?
No. Isn't that Palou?
Oh, Palou, Alex Palou.
Yeah,
Yes. For McLaren. No, I don't think so.
Oh, never mind.
I thought it was. I thought it was Brazilian. Maybe.
Oh. Ooh, I have no idea.
Here, you want to type it in and see? But yeah,
I just thought he's successful. Maybe he would try to.
Spanish. He's Spanish.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Palou, like, listen.
Yeah, but
Americans
I think there's an put an F2. I think there's an American and F2 at the moment. So if they'll give him another year, maybe he'll join.
Jack Crawford.
Is it? Oh yeah.
There you go.
Is he? No. Yeah. So Jack Crawford. Maybe
they'll put an American in it. Yeah, I think would be good. For the Indy thing, I do want to point out. I don't think there's ever someone who's ever been successful who went from Indy to
F1.
I think it's been the other way around.
Yes, the other way around
from
for sure.
F1 to Indy, but never the other. So either way, Alex, if you do join, regardless of your nationality, best of luck.
Yes. But yeah, so we have one more. We have 2 more F1 races coming up. We have the one in Qatar this weekend, and then the final race in Abu Dhabi.
I was just thinking some more names, like maybe Grosjean would come back because he's in Indy right now.
I thought maybe Vettel. They'll bring back the big guns,
Yes, but I don't know if Vettel would want to drive in that car. I think Vettel would then want it to be
Audi. Which is not Audi
either
anymore.
German, or like in something that he maybe has proof that it will be competitive.
True.
Or like who has a history of being competitive. Yes. Because I don't think he would enjoy cruising in the back, because like that's what he kind of did with Aston Martin.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
A hyper competitive car.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussion next year. There's going to be lots of rumors, of course. I mean, the whole grid essentially going into 2026. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the last 2 races. I think it's going to still be fun because, we still have the Constructor Championship up for grabs. And then we'll see if maybe some things in the driver standing will change. And I just want to enjoy the last 2 races. It's been a really fun season. So I hope for 2 good final races.
Because this upcoming weekend will be in Qatar.
Yes.
We will physically again be in LA, but F1 will be in Qatar. And then we'll rounding up the season in Abu Dhabi at the Yas Marina
Circuit.
All right, guys. As always, get in the comments. Let us know your thoughts. I know this was a lot of mumbo jumbo.
Yes.
I feel like not as structured as we like to be, but I did feel like the race, there wasn't that much. There was so much around it, really.
Yeah, but let us know your thoughts on the race. Let us know your thoughts on our new 11th team for 2026. That's how Milan types like this. Yeah. That's why it takes a while for us to respond to comments, because he's like this.
It's like I press all the buttons at once and I have to delete the ones I don't need. It's very inefficient, but I don't know how else to do it. This is how they taught 10 fingers to me all at once.
But then we'll be back on Thursday with our what to watch video for this upcoming weekend. And like we've said in the community tab, it's going to be a little bit slower for the remainder of this month with videos as we prepare for our December 2025 countdown, and then we'll do a bunch of recap videos in December as well, as we get ready for some changes for 2025. All right, like, subscribe. We'll see you on Thursday.